Hey everyone, Michelle here, personal trainer and lifestyle coach. Today we are here to talk about our April 2023 theme of the month, building a dietary roadmap. Now, I do have an episode of our podcast coming out in just a couple of weeks where I meet with a physique coach who gives a lot of really great detail about how to determine how many calories you should be consuming. So definitely look forward to that. But what we're going to start working on for this month is starting to establish a roadmap for ourselves in terms of the calories that we should be consuming on a regular basis. Now, the best way to do this is to help somehow establish your TDEE or your total daily energy expenditure. Now, remember that TDEE breaks down into four main components: your basal metabolic rate, the thermic effect of food, the exercise activity thermogenesis, and your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. We talked about that a little bit when we talked about our activity a few months ago. Now, with these categories, what we want to establish is what is your BMR or your basal metabolic rate. That is basically the calories that your body needs to be able to function on a day-to-day basis. And then we're going to take some additional information to calculate approximately what your TDEE is going to be, and that's how many calories you should be consuming on a daily basis. Now, there are a lot of really great ways to be able to estimate this, and I use that word especially because nothing is going to be exact. The Mueller equation, for example, as we talk about in our podcast episode, is one of the best ways to be able to estimate your BMR. So I will include a link for that below for you to be able to use as a tool. You can also use some food trackers like MyFitnessPal, who also try to take in your activity into account. Now, with that being said, nothing is going to be perfect. So the best way for us to be able to really establish how many calories you should be consuming is by looking at our patterns. Now, it's been a couple of years since we've used MyFitnessPal, but that is going to be our goal, is to be able to track our food, our drinks, anything that we're consuming, and be able to see what our average calories are. So what we're gonna do is take this month, for the first 1 to 2 weeks, we're gonna make no changes to your diet. You're just going to track what you're consuming. Now, there are a lot of great calorie tracking apps out there, so you don't have to use MyFitnessPal. That's just the one that I'm most familiar with and usually recommend to most of my clients. They have a really extensive library, so it's a really great resource. But if you have one that you like, go ahead and use that as well. But the goal is for us to establish what are you currently consuming, not making any changes to your diet, being honest and truthful and including anything that you're drinking, any liquids. We want to make sure that we have everything in there and that we're actually taking the time, if possible, to weigh or measure out what we're eating. Now, again, we're trying to create this dietary roadmap. We're trying to figure out what we're consuming so that we can better decide if that's the right amount for us. So the other piece that we want to pay attention to is your weight. Now, body fat percentage would be better, but that's not always super feasible for a lot of people. So we are going to go ahead and just use the number on the scale for this particular experiment. So what we're gonna do is about once a week, if you can do it daily, awesome, more data the better, but at least once a week, we wanna make sure that we are weighing ourselves, and then once a week, we wanna make sure that we are averaging our daily calories. We wanna make sure that these are the same situation as much as possible. So for example, the best way to weigh yourself is gonna be early in the morning, before you've eaten, and probably after you've gone to the bathroom. That's a personal choice, but just make sure that it's consistent every time you do it. And you can even take progress pictures if you'd like once a week to see if we can see any differences once you start making changes to your diet. But again, the first week or two is just to establish how much you're consuming on a consistent basis, and then we start to look at the pattern. If you continue to be able to eat like that, what does your calorie look like and what does your weight look like? If your weight is going up, then more than likely you're probably in a calorie surplus. If your weight is going down, you're more than likely in a calorie deficit. Now, this is not a one-time thing, right? We're looking for patterns, so this is gonna be week to week and being able to compare our information to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. So again, you can use the Mueller equation, you can use MyFitnessPal or whatever calorie tracking app you're using as a good base to approximate what you should be consuming, but really what we want to look at is what are you consuming versus where your weight is or eventually your body fat. So that's the relationship that we really, really want to pay attention to. The other thing that we're doing with this dietary roadmap is that we are starting to learn and establish portion sizes. Now, there are a lot of really great tools for being able to see, portion sizes on your hand or in every other everyday items. So we are starting to get an idea of what, a half a cup of something looks like, what an ounce of something looks like, how much it approximately weighs if you were to grab a handful of whatever you're gonna eat, right? And that is going to help establish us a better idea of what we should be consuming and how much we should be consuming when we're no longer tracking. Now, keep in mind, tracking is not meant and designed to be necessarily done every day for the rest of your life. There are certain people that have a better success with that and/or reasons for tracking a little bit more consistently. But generally speaking, it is just a really great way to check in to see where we're at right now and kind of where we want to be. So that's what we're gonna do this month. We're gonna track what we're eating, track what we're drinking, and track our weight, and start to establish those patterns for ourselves. Start to be smarter about the decisions that we're making. The first week or two, again, not making any changes. And then after that, if we make changes, try to make really small and consistent changes as much as possible. Maybe change one thing at a time so you can start to see maybe if it makes a difference for you and if you feel any different when you actually make that change. So I'm excited to see if you guys have any questions, please let me know. But this is just an educational experience for us to be able to establish what we're eating and get a better idea of what we're consuming on a day-to-day basis. Thanks so much.